escape from being some love, 'cause I'm a prisoner.
Alright, so this video is gonna be me going over why I find Decisive Strike an unbalanced perk and what can be done to fix Decisive Strike. This is mainly just my opinion. However, I'm gonna bring up some actual situations that happen within the game. I'm sure if you have played Killer or even Survivor, especially at a red ranks, you have probably dealt or experienced one of these before. Now, anyways, so I've seen recent debate about Decisive Strike and how split the community seems to be on the state of Decisive Strike. Now, in my opinion, Decisive Strike is not balanced. I'm going to go over why. First off, it's meant to be an anti-tunnel perk. The situation in which it's supposed to work out is when a survivor is being unhooked and immediately chased by the killer. Okay? That killer then proceeds to down said survivor, and Decisive Strike is meant to allow that survivor another chance to live. Basically, it's supposed to prevent you from dying immediately, right? I think we all can agree with that. That's the intended purpose of Decisive Strike. However, it's not always used like this. There are situations where killers may be purposely trying not to tunnel the survivor as they may not want to deal with DS or just trying to play nice. And I have seen numerous occasions, even from my own experience as a rank 1 killer main, where a killer can hook one person, then have time to down and hook another person. But then, once they leave that hook, the second person, they come and find the first person who was just previously hooked by accident or randomly, So, if I hook one person first, I go away, that person gets unhooked, and I chase another survivor, down them, hook them, and then, I'm going away from the hook. I'm basically saying, there's a chance I might encounter that survivor who got hooked by me first again, either by chance or, accidentally, whatever, right? What tends to happen next is I'm able to down that person once again, but when I pick them up, I get DS'd. Did I tunnel that person? No. Because I went away from the hook, I hooked another survivor, I came back, probably toward a generator, and found that survivor again, downed them, tried to pick them up, and then I get DS. I did not try to tunnel him, right? So, obviously in this example, the killer didn't mean to tunnel that survivor, who, might I mention, might have been healthy, might not even been injured, but actually healthy. They just happened to stumble upon them first after hooking another survivor, right? All right, so I'm going to go over some ways that DS or Decisive Strike is abused. Hold on, let me drink some water real quick because, this is a long one. All right. Anyways, all right. Number 1, Locker DS. Locker DS is when a survivor is being chased and has Decisive Strike active. They'll proceed to jump in a locker and force the killer in a dilemma. Either leave the survivor alone and lose pressure and time, or grab the survivor, take the DS, and again, lose pressure and time. This is a lose-lose situation for killer. Now, I understand that survivors do this in order to not be slugged after being unhooked, but what happens is when you get survivors who are trying to use every resource they can in order to win, they can abuse this. In other words, you'll probably see it mostly in Swift groups that are really trying to either bully the killer or really trying to win the game as fast as possible. And so what these kinds of survivors will tend to do is they might try to bait a killer away, right? Kind of like when a survivor tries to take a hit with borrowed time. This is kind of similar, in which a survivor is trying to bait the killer away from their teammates, and if the killer falls for it, the killer will proceed to chase that survivor, and what'll happen is, as soon as like the killer gets a chance to actually like down the survivor, they'll jump into a locker. And if you're experienced killer main or whatever, you know that this has basically become this kind of like really toxic norm, where if a survivor just jumps into a locker and they just been previously hooked, or just have a feeling like they're gonna try to DS me, right? And so what you have is, in sweaty, swift groups, or just a survivor trying to win as much as possible, or a survivor just trying to bully a killer, they will try to force a killer to take their decisive strike by baiting the by baiting the killer into chasing them, and as soon as they can, jump into a locker and just like force the killer into that dilemma of, do I pick them up or grab them, or do I just leave them alone? There are times where like survivors might just, locker spam, where they jump in and out of the locker over and over again to kind of like taunt the killer, or just really bait them into grabbing them, So yeah, that's one way, locker DS. Next one is accidental immunity. That's what I call it. Now, hold on, I need more water. All right. Next one, accidental immunity. Healing from injured to healthy can take upwards to 16 seconds when you are being healed by another survivor. If the killer is busy chasing another survivor and you can get unhooked, or if the killer is busy chasing another survivor and you get unhooked, that essentially means you and the unhooker can easily get you back up to healthy within just 16 seconds or less, if we include perks and great skill checks, or medkits. Or even like multiple survivors healing you like 2. I'm pretty sure like that might be like 12 seconds or so. 16 seconds reduced from 60 is about 44 seconds. And if you don't know, DS lasts 60 seconds at max tier. So 16 seconds reduced from that 60 seconds is 44 seconds. If the killer were to come back toward your location and spotted you, the person who was just unhooked and has DS active, first, if he spots you first after you just fully healed, you would still have roughly 40 or more seconds left upon DS. Meaning, if you were to go down in less than 40 seconds, you could easily DS the killer, despite you not actually being tunneled or purposely chased down, whatever, right? In some cases, if the killer injures you and he's about to get the second hit off, you can slow vault a window/pallet to force a killer to grab you. This meaning a free 5-second stun. That, or jump into a locker, do locker DS tech, whatever, right? Even if you didn't have DS active still, experienced killers take that as a sign of an incoming locker DS if you jump into a locker. You might not even have DS, but you can still bluff that, hey, Mr. Killer, I have DS because I jumped into a locker, because it has become such like a norm for survivors to jump into lockers in order to get their DS off. So what results of this can be, hold on a sec. Either the killer can wait out the DS until it's deactivated, But of course, this is probably gonna result in them wasting even more time because, it's because unless that killer was keeping like a mental timer in their head of like, okay, that survivor just got unhooked, I'm gonna count down 60 seconds in my head. Yeah, most killers, I think, aren't gonna do that and just have to like assume how long your DS still has on it. That's for waiting it out. If you go in a locker, they could leave you alone, which again wastes time, or they could or they can actually call your bluff, go for it, and if they're lucky, your DS will have run out. If they're not, then more than likely your DS only had like 5-10 seconds left on it, and the killer just waited a little more, they would have been fine. All right, I'm gonna drink water again. I have, I think, 3 more things. Hold on. All right. Abuse tactic number, I don't know, I think 3 right now. Objective immunity. There are times when DS can be used to grant immunity to do objectives, sorry. Currently, for survivors to win the game, they only have to do generators and sometimes totems. Like if the killer has Ruin or the killer has Devour Hope, you want to find that in case, because if you don't, you're just lessening your chances of winning. Whatever. Crap, I just spilled my water. Okay, going back to accidental immunity abuse tactic. When survivors get unhooked and get healed within a span of 16 or less seconds, they have nothing else to do but work on generators or totems. This results in situations where a survivor may just rush to a generator right after being healed, or even sometimes may run to the generator even while injured. Now, obviously, killers need to defend gens in order to win. So when they spot these survivors doing generators, obviously they will try to chase them in order to defend the gen. However, this results in accidental immunity. The killer didn't mean to tunnel that survivor. He or she was just defending their lifeline, otherwise gens. Because, as you know, each generator loss is like a step closer to that killer losing, basically. So when the killer downs the survivor and picks them up and gets DS, that's really unfair, because, again, the survivor just decided, hey, I just been healed, I still have DS up, so I'm just going to go work on objectives like generators or totems, and if the killer tries to chase me, like they're supposed to, I can just DS them if they down me too fast, or I can jump into a locker. It's pretty dumb. Now, this is the last abuse tactic. I'm calling it second chance frenzy. Now, DS has a lot of synergy with some perks. The most popular and most possibly broken of them is Unbreakable in DS. Having Decisive Strike means you can't be grabbed or picked up, right? This usually results in killers slugging the survivor to counter the DS. However, if the survivor also has Unbreakable, then they are able to get up within, I think, off the top of my head, 20 seconds if you have tier 3. I'm not sure. It might be faster, it might be slower. Either way, you were able to get up on your own in a fast manner. Now, what this essentially means is the survivor is unchaseable. All you can do is injure them and leave them. Downing them is a waste of time. You can't pick up and you can't slug them either. In some cases, Soul Guard, the new perk that came with Cheryl in the Silent Hill chapter, Soul Guard is also used along with DS or Unbreakable. Sometimes, you'll have all 3 stacked up upon each other, and what this results in, sorry if I'm repeating myself, is you can't pick up the survivor, and if you try to slug the survivor, they'll get up on their own, and if you try to hit the survivor down again, they'll have Enduring for 8 seconds, and you won't know if they even have any of these 3 perks. This is what makes Decisive Strike really strong as well, is that you don't know who's gonna have it. It is much like no end. You just always have to expect it to come. You never know for sure until it's too late. When you pick up the survivor and they DS you, that's when you know, like, yeah, he definitely had DS because he just used it on me. But, obviously it's too late at that point. The only sign you can use is when there is no obsession at the beginning of the match. However, if there is an obsession, hold on. Excuse me. The killer has to always play as if a survivor has Decisive Strike due to the lack of information it gives. Sometimes the killer may just be bringing an obsession perk, like Nemesis or Play With Your Food, or the survivor might bring an alternative obsession perk with, like, Object of Obsession or Last Survivor Standing, that one Lori perk. I can't remember it. And so, point being, when this happens, no survivor could have DS, but the killer doesn't know this. Neither does the survivors unless they're in comms or Swift or whatever, and the killer is forced to still play around as if everyone has Decisive Strike. That is what makes the Decisive Strike, Unbreakable, and even Soul Guard combo so strong, is because the killer doesn't have, like, I don't know what the word is, but he basically does not know for sure if someone has Unbreakable or someone has DS or someone has Soul Guard up until it's too late when the perk is actually used. Now, I'm going to be going into what I would change about Decisive Strike now. Alright, so the way I would balance Decisive Strike. My idea is a rework of some sorts, but it kind of keeps the core values of Decisive Strike intact. So first off, make Decisive Strike last a duration of 35 seconds. I have seen people say it should last 30 seconds. I've seen some people say it should last 60 seconds, 40 seconds, I think 35 seconds is a good solid middle ground. That's enough time to heal yourself, even by yourself, even if you self-cared. Like, I think self-care takes like 32 seconds. So, enough time for that and all. And then the stun is going to go from 3 to 3.5 to 4 seconds. This is mainly because the current stun is 5 seconds. And the only reason why it was made 5 seconds was because Enduring, when it used to reduce the stun duration by half, they decided to increase the stun duration of Decisive Strike to 5 seconds to kind of counteract that. But obviously, if you've been playing DBD for a while, they reverted I was about to say Decisive Strike, sorry. They reverted or tweaked Enduring so that it does not affect Decisive Strike anymore, but they never changed the Decisive Strike stun duration. So I feel 5 seconds is more than enough time. So I just feel, we should go back to that old value, 3.5, 4 seconds. I think that's fair. The timer will be stopped if you are in chase. I am aware that this can be cheesed either by, facing Wraith Pig, Ghostface because no tear radius, or Wraith because he can't chase. No, my thing with this is that you can still see the killer, right? And you can still see the killer, and if the killer is actually going to chase you, like, say it's Wraith, right? If he's actually going to just chase you off hook for 35 seconds, that's like a huge time waster on his part. And by the time the 35 seconds is up, like, not only does the Wraith have to, like, keep a mental timer in his head of, like, counting in his head, like, 35, 34, 33, that gives you more than enough time to, like, get to a loop, like a pallet loop or window loop, or get to your other survivors so that maybe they can body block, or they can force Wraith or whoever to come out of cloak. Now, obviously there's some other killers or some other exploit, like moonwalking is one thing. So see, the thing with moonwalking is that the killer's line of sight isn't on you, right? The killer's line of sight is facing the opposite direction. Now, in theory, you should be able to like kind of, play around this. Kind of like play it like you would a nurse, block the killer's line of sight as much as you can so that the killer just loses track of you. And I feel like, let's say you're running and the killer's like moonwalking you, right? I feel like if you were just able to get to a pallet, the killer's not paying attention. He doesn't know where he's going or she's going. If you just stun the killer, that's like 2 seconds, and then you can probably get a really good head start. And then, again, like you have 35 seconds. Like that's plenty of time to get to a loop or pallet or something. This kind of DS is just to help give you time to actually like get to a loop that you can probably feel comfortable around, whether it be T-Wall or Jungle Gym or something. Obviously it's flawed in a way, yes, I know, but I just really feel like this is better than the current DS. Some other changes: if the survivor is healed fully, or if they start doing a gen, a totem, or start doing a chest, then Decisive Strike will deactivate. That is, if you are doing anything other than healing yourself, like doing a gen or a totem, or I guess even chest opening. Well, I'm not really sure about the chest opening, but, if that's too much, then we can get rid of that, whatever. But obviously, the main point is, if you're doing a gen or a totem, you are willingly saying, like, I'm not being tunneled. I am in a good spot to work on my survivor objective. Therefore, you do not need DS. So it deactivates. Alright, so I have 2 more things left to discuss about my changes. Unbreakable and Soul Guard will not allow you to get back up if you have DS. Basically what I'm saying is Unbreakable and Soul Guard aren't going to work together with DS. Now, I'm debating on whether this should only be if DS is active or just in general, if you just run the perks together, like before even the game starts, if like they won't work. Now, my justification for this is the devs have shown a trend or like recent balancing decision to allow or like not allow killer perks to stack upon each other. Thanatophobia just recently got a nerf where it doesn't lower healing speeds anymore. This was mainly done because it would stack with Sloppy Butcher, which would make healing speeds really, really long. And so, that's fair, right? Same thing with the Ruin change, Ruin mainly got changed because, of course, yes, it was used in 80% of matches, that and all. And plus, they also did it because it could be stacked with other gen defense perks, mainly Pop Goes the Weasel and Surge here and there. And so, that was another reason why they reworked Ruin so that it wouldn't stack with other gen regression perks. Now, in my opinion, if they're going to do this for Killer, they should do it for Survivor. All right? So, second chance perks should not be allowed to stack upon each other. That's what I'm saying when I say Unbreakable, DS, Soul Guard should not be able to stack upon each other, because I already explained what happens. You get this like really immune survivor you can't do anything to. All right, one last thing I forgot to mention. It's basically another problem with Decisive Strike. It is the line of sight lost once you are stunned. Not only are you stunned for 5 seconds currently, you are also, most of the time, you don't even see where the survivor ran off to unless they run directly in your line of sight. Okay? This is basically just a double negative for the killer. Not only are they getting stunned for 5 seconds, they're also losing line of sight of their survivor. And knowing how scratch marks can be and the existence of perks like Iron Will, or even Urban or Fixated, or stealth perks like that, it can just be really easy to lose a killer after you DS them because they were just stuck there for 5 seconds and they don't even get to see you or see where you ran off to. And so that's my justification for reducing stun timer. It's either keep the 5 second stun, but make the line of sight, more linear so I can, actually see where I at least have an idea of where the survivor is going, or just reduce the stun. That is my preferred method. Just reduce the stun. You can keep the line of sight how it is, but just reduce the stun because it actually used to be 4 seconds. And then, that was fine. People were still using it. It was fine how it was back then, and it was only 4 seconds. I think it actually was able to decrease down to 3 and 3.5, but people would still use it back then. And this is when enduring was a thing too. And so yeah, I think that's it for my whole discussion. So probably going to post this as a Word document in case anyone doesn't want to just listen to me talk. You can read it for yourself in the description. But if you take the time to listen to me or just read what I have to say about Decisive Strike, I appreciate it. And if you disagree or have a criticism, you can tell me in the comments below or something. And, all I ask is that we be civil and that, we try not to have too much bias. Because I know Killer Main will say this, Survivor Main will say that, blah, blah, blah. I am just going off my own personal experiences and what I've seen from other killer streamers or survivor streamers and what experiences they have with DS. So I just want to thank you again for listening and watching the video. Let me know what you think, and see ya.